Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. I'm not joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey, for today's show. He's out for this one, but we got a lot to talk about for the show. A lot to break down. Week 2's in the books. We did not have a good Harvey Hot Hand. We went 1-5. That Chargers pick, though, that we did at the very end of the Harvey Hot Hand, that did hit. Everything else was crazy. We have a lot of crazy games to talk about. The Cardinals one, I'm mad about that one. They were leading all the way. It was like 27-13. Then all of a sudden, Bryce Young starts hitting some passes, and they were able to get it very, very close and have an opportunity to actually beat the Arizona Cardinals, but the Cardinals were able to hold on, but we did not cover the 6.5 point spread. One of the games that I will be talking about is the Colts-Broncos game, which we're going to get to in a few minutes here, that game, I was, again, very wrong about one quarterback, at least for the time being. Maybe not over the, the long stretch of things. Partially right. I want to say partially right, also partially wrong. But I do want to start the show today. Great show in store for you. A lot of topics to talk about. A lot of redemption stories. That's going to be the theme of today's show, redemption. Because before we get to the redemption and the positive sides, because this seems to be a very negative show, I do want to get the negativity sort of out of the way with this one. The Miami Dolphins lost against the New England Patriots on Sunday, 33-27. And while it wasn't as bad as week 1 when the Dolphins lost 33-8 to the Indianapolis Colts and only scored very late in the fourth quarter. So the first 3 and 3 quarters of the game was just terrible to watch. They actually put up points in this one and actually through a very small amount of time led in this game. Especially late going down to end of the half, able to get a big-time touchdown to shrink the deficit right then and there and able to open up pretty nicely. They got Tyreek Hill involved on a deep pass. We're going to talk about it. But at the post-game press conference, that's where I want to start. Because after this terrible loss, this head-scratching loss, Mike McDaniel tried to explain the mindset of basically how to win football games. So take a listen to what he's had to say after the 33-27 loss to the New England Patriots.
To win games, you have to win the game, not lose the game, honestly. And that is how you lose the game. You're moving the ball down the field. You're 1st and 10, and then you find yourself at 2nd and 20. That was critical.
I feel like I sort of understood what he was trying to say. It's just that the way he says it in these post-game conferences, you question, does he know what the hell he's talking about? Because trying to listen to that is very difficult. But the post-game press conferences were interesting because it seems like Tua and Mike McDaniel were both sort of taking accountability for their different roles, but also taking shots at one another. Because if we go to some of the quotes, let's go to the first one here. This was Tua, on the Dolphins' game operations in this loss to New England. Quote, that was really frustrating. I was frustrated with the communication with the guys inside the huddle, what the personnel is, the play for those guys. If we have too many guys in the huddle, why do we have another guy running in? Just the whole operation of that was not up to the standard. It was not up to par. And Mike McDaniel said, he was questioning, job security, obviously, and rightfully so. So his comment to that was, I think if I worry about job security, I won't be doing my job. And I think that inherently is against all things that I believe in. I've never felt entitled to this position, and it's very important for me to spend all my working hours worrying about exactly how to do my job. Now, here's my question, because in week 1, Mike McDaniel took accountability for the players not being ready for week 1. So how many weeks are we going to keep going about players not being ready, about Mike McDaniel having to be like, okay, that's my responsibility, before Stephen Ross says, you know what, we're done with this. We're done with this experiment. It worked for a year and a half, but it's not working anymore. Tua Tagovailoa throughout his career was undefeated against the New England Patriots. And we could talk about the offensive line, and the offensive line was pretty bad. Aaron Burrow had 3 penalties in this game. I assume that's what Mike McDaniel was talking about going from 1st and 10 to 1st and 20 and whatnot. But this game was a lot of everything. Tua missed an open Tyreek Hill, and then on the interception, he missed a wide-open Julian Hill that could have probably been at least a first down, if not a touchdown on the play. There was a lot of missed opportunities that it just seems like this Dolphins team is unprepared. They already had a players meeting after week 1. We just ended week 2, and you've already had a players meeting in week 1. It seems like nobody's playing with any cohesion. It seems like the players are coming out in support of Mike McDaniel, but the way they play, it seems like you have zero respect for your head coach. I mean, the offenses were actually pretty decent. There were 2 special teams touchdowns, which was pretty crazy. But overall, I think that this was just an amplified version of what this Miami Dolphins team is going to be for the foreseeable future. Because, let's be honest, they're going to be 0-3. On Thursday Night Football, they play the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills have shellacked them 13 out of the last 14 times. I mean, Josh Allen absolutely dominates Miami every which way. So the fact that you're coming off a terrible loss against Indy and an embarrassing loss against New England, and now you're having on a short week to go play Buffalo, who beats you every single time, I made a prediction to my friends in a group chat about how I don't expect Mike McDaniel to retain his coaching job ahead of week 3. Maybe I jumped the gun a little bit, and maybe it'll be ahead of week 4. Because I fully expect the Dolphins to look terrible on Thursday Night Football. Because think about it, Josh Allen just went up against the New York Jets, who played great in week 1. And then the defense made Justin Fields look like he's a high school quarterback. Josh Allen didn't play particularly well, broke his nose, it seemed to be. Mitch Trubisky got in there and threw a pass or 2, and they won 30-10. James Cook had a great game. So, and by the way, Ramondre Stevenson looked like his rookie year Ramondre Stevenson, where it's like, okay, the Patriots have a great running back. So the fact that the Dolphins defense and the Dolphins organization was able to amplify their negatives, and then also it's not an entire loss because their offense seemed to, be decent. The deep throw to Tyreek Hill, though, the one that was completed, it was like a 45, 50-yard pass in the air, but if Tyreek Hill had a slightly better arm, there was a massive separation gap between Tyreek Hill and the next defender. He had to come back to get that football. That probably would have been a touchdown. So, add on top of the fact that the Patriots kicker kept missing extra points, which that adds to the embarrassment. I think there were a lot of missed opportunities consistently. There always is a missed opportunity for the Miami Dolphins, whether it's an overthrow by Tua, where it's an open guy that Tua just doesn't see, whether it's a coaching malpractice incident by Mike McDaniel, where it's like, do we call a timeout? 12 men in the huddle, emotions getting too high and people getting too antsy and frustrated. It just seems like this is an organization not well put together. It seems like everybody's trying to figure out their role, and a lot of these guys are the same. Their offense in the offseason, because their offensive line was terrible last year, and everybody knew it. Their running game and their offensive line was bad. You lost Teron Armstead. He retired, and you didn't do anything on the offensive line. That falls on Greer, that falls on Stephen Ross, and that partially falls on Mike McDaniel because the coaching has been terrible. So what are the Dolphins going to look like moving forward? Because after the game against the Buffalo Bills, they head off to the Jets. And if Justin Fields is as bad as he looked in week 2, well, you have an opportunity to win. But I think that the defense is actually going to play better against you, so we may chalk that up to a loss. And then you play against the Panthers, where Bryce Young, he looked bad through like 3 quarters, but in the 4th quarter, he seemed to come alive a little bit. I still think he's a complete bust, and especially for a first overall pick, he is a bust as it currently stands. You play in Carolina. And then you play the Chargers at home. At Browns, if we're saying somehow Bryce Young gets the win, your first win may come in Cleveland against the Cleveland Browns. But there's not many wins here whatsoever. And your over-under was 8.5. I don't know how many people took this over. Because you could see walking in, the team looked poor. There was no real offseason move that helped you. I understand James Daniels is injured right now, but this is an embarrassment. Even when he was out there, he wasn't playing well. I mean, the Indy defense, which, by the way, is the Indianapolis Colts' weakness right now, they got home on Tua. Tua doesn't operate very well in the pocket. He seems to be lost in large swaths of the game. He looked a little bit more comfortable this week, but it could be because, maybe the Patriots defense, we saw it in week 1 against Geno Smith. Geno Smith nearly put up 380 yards against them, and then Geno Smith against the Chargers defense looked like back when he used to play for the New York Jets. He was that bad. 3 interceptions. I believe the first play was a pick. So A little bit of New England defense. Could it be to his, he had a good game? Maybe. I think there's just a lot left to be desired on both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, and from Mike McDaniel. So, to be honest, I don't see much of a path forward besides definitely Mike McDaniel's going to get fired. You may want to fire your GM, and then maybe, I think personally, because I've said this, the data backs it up. People could complain about it, about the intricacies of, but the defense puts up this many. I don't really care. All I know is the data based on Tua is when people decide to put on anything more than a short sleeve shirt, Tua freezes up. Because in 65-degree weather, he's 7-19, and his offense in the 19 losses averages 16.7 points a game. And he's just not good. So when most people put on a long sleeve shirt or a sweater, Tua all of a sudden doesn't know how to play quarterback. That's what the data says. His individual performance is lackluster. So if you only have a quarterback who plays 70% of the season respectfully and somewhat competently, the last 30% when it matters. So that's December, January, and God forbid somehow you make it that far in the Super Bowl in February, he's not going to be there for you. So I would maybe look at getting another quarterback, something like that. Because by the looks of it, you played the Ravens, you played the Bills, you played the Commanders, you played the Bengals when Joe Burrow might be back, which we're going to talk about very shortly. You play the Buccaneers, you play the Pittsburgh Steelers. You'll play the Patriots again. You'll play the Jets twice. You play Michael Penix, who's not having, a horrible season thus far. He's just been kind of unlucky. I mean, there are a lot of losses here. There are a lot of losses. You had one really good year of 11-6, and Mike McDaniel, his first year, was able to make the playoffs, but then you lost to the Buffalo Bills, and then you make playoffs again and lose in a freezing cold game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where, again, Tua looked terrible. What are we doing? I think trying to hold on, and this is what a couple organizations do. The Cowboys have done it. The Jets have done it. The Giants have done it. A lot of bad organizations do it. You don't want to fully cut bait with everybody and start fresh when you have an ounce of success. What happens when it's just a once-in-a-lifetime moment? Like, I don't think we'll see Trevor Lawrence ever be this close to beating Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game and potentially making the AFC Championship game. I don't think we'll ever see that. And it could be coaching, it could be Trevor Lawrence, it could be personnel, it could be whatever. I do not think we'll see that moment again. But that's what happened. And they doubled down on it. They paid him $55 million, and he's still yet to earn his money. Jordan Love has. Jordan Love 100% has. He has this season. He's been earning that money through 2 weeks so far. The Miami Dolphins, I'm sorry. I wish I could say, you got to look at right here. This is where you could focus in on the hope. The data says this, or look for this. There's promising signs. I guess the running game's not horrible. I think that's the only positive thing I could say. Your defense, I will say, in moments in the New England game, your defense was able to get to Drake May and able to pressure him, able to sack him a few times. Then he did outrun Matt Judon, a little bit of revenge for that. Your defense played a little bit better, but it's still not good. Your offensive line is still abysmal. You got to work on that in the offseason. I think you'll have a new GM, a new head coach. I know you'll definitely have a new head coach. I do not think it'll be smart to bring back Mike McDaniel when he's saying things like, well, in order to win games, we can't lose. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So I think it's this season is basically a wrap because technically, based on the data, 12% of teams that went 0-2 since the playoff got expanded to 7 teams, 12% of the teams make the playoffs. If you go 0-3, since 2001 team has made the playoffs, and that was the Houston Texans in 2018. They went 11-5 and won their division. Respectfully, you're not beating the Buffalo Bills. You're not. So you have to pass the New England Patriots, who already have a 1-game head start on you. So this season might be a wrap. It's just a question of, do you want to cut your losses early, or do you want to ride out this wave where potentially you could be looking at a 5-win season? I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's get into the bad news. That was sort of expected. I don't think we would have seen it this early, but Joe Burrow got placed on the IR today after dealing with a grade 3 turf toe and torn ligaments and everything, and he's expected to miss at least 3 months, probably more. Based on what it looks like, high-grade toe turf injuries technically range from 3 to 6 months. This is probably going to be season-ending. So this is the terrible side of it. We saw this coming. At some point, Joe Burrow was going to have another injury or something where it's not looking good. He's taken way too many sacks, because Joe Burrow's role has gone from being a great quarterback making crazy plays to having to stay in the pocket to make the superhero play in order for the offense to do anything. And that's what happened in the game against the Cleveland Browns, and it happened in this game. Because when, as an organization, you don't spend money where it needs to be spent, and especially you waste time, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, all these guys could have been signed sooner, and you would have saved millions and millions of dollars, potentially for a role like, I don't know, maybe your offensive line, maybe a better running game. I said this to my friends, they're like, no, at the end of the year, it's like, I don't think Chase Brown's a great running back. Yeah, he had, 1,300 scrimmage yards last season, but the offensive line didn't improve. Joe Burrow was playing at an MVP level. And this season, obviously they want to keep going with the offense, keep expanding it, but I didn't see Chase Brown all of a sudden gaining this extra role, and all of a sudden he was projected like 1,400 scrimmage yards. Hell no. This was going to rely on Joe Burrow being spectacular, back to the MVP level performance. And that was never going to happen. Since 2021, because Joe Burrow, we remember, tore his ACL in his rookie year, and they were like 4 wins, 12 losses, and a tie, I believe, at that point, or something like that. That was their record. I think Joe Burrow had like a few wins there. But the offensive lines in pass block win rate over the last 5 years, 2021, 30th, 2022, 30th, 2023, 27th, 2024. Last year, dead last, and this year so far, they're 28th. It has been the worst offensive line in the NFL. And in fact, if you do qualified quarterbacks this season so far, Joe Burrow has the highest pressure rate in the NFL. The offensive line can't do anything. His running game, because everyone's like, Chase Brown could be a good running back. So far this season, they're 31st in yards per carry, 30th in explosive run rate at 0%, so they're tied, obviously. 31st in rate of runs for 1 yard or fewer at 43%, and 31st in yards before contact. They go backwards. The defense has been terrible as well. I mean, all around, the team has just been abysmal, and it's because you don't spend money. That's why Sportico, when they come out with their valuable franchises, they estimate, right? The Dallas Cowboys are always number one, even though they don't really do much, just big name brand. When you don't spend money on big-time players, you're not going to get the big-time recognition. So when you have data like this saying that you're spending, obviously, the quarterback and the wide receiver, obviously those would be your top two. Joe Burrow's making $55 million, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins just made a bunch of money in this offseason. Offensive line is 26th. Running back room, 19th. Tight ends, which is not bad, average at 16th. But that's what happens. You don't spend the money, and the secondary is even worse. You're talking about 25th in total defensive spending. So at what point is everyone going to wake up and be like, okay, the Bengals, and people are now making the comparisons after this injury, we're looking at Andrew Luck 2.0. Now, Joe Burrow, I think, is far better than Andrew Luck, but this is what we're seeing. And this isn't some crazy thing of running and Joe Burrow trying to make a play. He was in the pocket and a guy fell on his ankle because the offensive line couldn't hold up. Could we argue, he was staying in the pocket a little bit too long? Sure. But when your offense is stuttering and it can't do anything, and can't do anything, you're going to need Joe Burrow to be Superman. You're going to need him to make the play, to stay in the pocket a little bit longer in order to at least have your offense do something. Because your defense has been an opportunistic defense where you get tipped ball interceptions. Your defense, though, all around, though, hasn't been great. They've forced punts on 18% of their drives, second to last. They've allowed teams to get into their red zone 41% of the time. That's 30th. So all around, you have a bad defense, a bad running game, and a terrible offensive line. Yeah, you signed a guy in free agency, but guess what? He's rated 63 out of 67 qualified guards, according to Pro Football Focus. So if anyone was expecting, like me, hopefully the Bengals could figure it out, Joe Burrow could be MVP level, well, then I was wrong. Because this is bad. And now you have to throw Jake Browning out there, who threw 3 interceptions, and because Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter, well, at least Brian Thomas Jr. was apparently making business decisions and trying not to get hit on hospital balls, let's say it how it is. Trevor Lawrence was throwing bad passes, but they were catchable, so the blame could be however you want to split it. Blame deserves to be on both sides, though. I could understand Brian Thomas not wanting to go reach for a ball and then wanting to get basically decapitated by the defender. I can completely understand that. but also they're a catchable pass. So maybe, again, fault is on both sides. But this was a very winnable game for the Jaguars. But it was the drops. It was the poor performance offensively. It was Jake Brown. Jake Browning threw 3 interceptions, and the Bengals still somehow won this game. That's a failure on the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Bengals should be 1-1. But it's because business decisions. Travis Hunter, for some reason, maybe, did we overrate him? Because he's not a great cornerback, and he's done nothing offensively. I should know. I have him on my fantasy team. He's getting benched, at least for me, this week. So the offense needs to figure itself out. Because right now, it's not looking good. Hell, it's not even looking decent. The Jaguars, they need to figure that side out right now. Because Trevor Lawrence does not look great. Him and Liam Cohen are going at it right now. Offensive line's not great. Defense is mediocre at best. And you let Jake Browning throw 3 interceptions and still beat you. That's bad. But, yeah, the question on the lower third is the season over for the Bengals? Yeah, it is. Because I do not think you're going to go into a season, the rest of the season, and play teams like Detroit. Maybe Minnesota, because Minnesota, J.J. McCarthy's played, one good quarter so far? And I know people are like, oh, but he's so young. I have data that says college he was never relied upon, and now that he's relied upon, he's failing. So we could have this conversation when eventually we talk about J.J. McCarthy's performance. I want to give him a little bit of leeway. A lot of people aren't right now. I guess it's the hot thing to talk about. I'm going to give him a little more leeway because this is his second career start, and maybe by Thanksgiving, maybe by Christmas, we could have a full analysis. By Christmas, the season's basically over, but we'll have an analysis of just how okay, good, bad, terrible, whatever, how J.J. McCarthy performed. But the Bengals go play Minnesota at Minnesota. We'll see. The defense might be a little bit much against the Bengals' terrible offensive line. At Denver, Denver's now on a revenge tour because their performance against the Colts was embarrassing. Home against Detroit, at Green Bay, home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, how many wins are we realistically saying if you could really do nothing offensively, at least when Joe Burrow was out there through the first 2 weeks? I'm not sure. You play the Jets, the Bears, then you have a bye week in week 10. Then you play the Steelers, Patriots, and then here's where I knew even going into the season with Joe Burrow healthy that this was going to be basically an impossible gauntlet to overcome. Ravens, Buffalo, Ravens. At least you get an easy week 16 game where Joe Burrow might come back, but at that point, we're probably looking at what? 2 wins? 2, 3 wins maybe? You play the Dolphins and then the Cardinals, and then you wrap it up home against Cleveland. Cleveland did a number on you in week 1. So I think this is going to be the end of Zach Taylor. I said he should have been fired last year because the offense Joe Burrow was pissed early in the year, had these meetings. You could see the frustration. You saw the frustration in week 1. You saw it every single drop back basically in this game. I mean, he's pissed off. He's a $55 million a year quarterback on average. He is a top quarterback in the NFL, but when you don't have competency around him and his offensive line, you can never get right every single season. And the defense has just regressed massively, and you're about to lose your best defender in Trey Hendrickson next year because he's pissed with your organization. It really wouldn't surprise me if we see in the offseason breaking news from Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Joe Burrow demands a trade or requests a trade. Now, that could be a wake-up to be like, okay, we need to actually help him out. And I don't think it would be a diva thing at all because he's tried his best. He literally is putting his body out on the line just to try to make a play for this offense that just doesn't operate well because the pocket doesn't give him enough time. Like I mentioned, he is the most pressure quarterback in the NFL this season. There's not much you can do. And he was getting cooked by a Jaguars defense that was so bad last year. The Cleveland Browns, they regressed a little bit defensively last year, but I could understand week 1 in Cleveland. They're all fresh. Everybody's basically healthy. I could understand why your offensive line might not be able to hold up against a fresh and healthy Cleveland Browns defense. But the Jaguars we're talking about, were able to do that. And also lead at the point where you got hurt in the game because your defense couldn't handle a disappointing, based on expectations, disappointing Jaguars offense. It's not looking good. I think that, again, I want to bring up the data again. When you spend, you right now, you spent your money in decent places, quarterback and wide receiver. That's great. And tight end, they're efficient enough where 16th is not terrible. But having the 5 guys in front of one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now and you're paying them the 26th most money, that's an issue. Running back group, again, running backs could be underrated depending on what team you are, and undervalued 100%. But ultimately, you're completely killing Joe Burrow's chances at bringing you to the promised land, because if we remember, look at the Super Bowl. Super Bowl, what was it, 52, I think? I might be wrong. The Rams-Bengals Super Bowl. Look at the All-22. On the very last play of the game, Joe Burrow takes the ball. I think Jalen Ramsey is the guy in coverage. Jalen Ramsey falls down, and Joe Burrow sees that Jalen Ramsey fell down. Jamar Chase is wide open for the game-winning touchdown. Aaron Donald breaks through the offensive line and is able to sack Joe Burrow for the game-sealing sack. If he had a third of a second more, we're talking about Joe Burrow winning the Super Bowl. Instead, we have the same issues several years later. At some point, people have to realize, or Zach Taylor or this organization has to realize, that something's not clicking. And it's not the lack of performance from your quarterback. And it's not the fact that you don't have weapons around your quarterback. It's the fact that the quarterback can't even get the ball out because your offensive line is terrible. The running back group is not exactly helping the offense out with the play action and setting things up. As the reports say, Joe Burrow's basically saying hike and figuring it out because there's no motion, there's no real play action, at least there's no threat of a play action. There's nothing special to the offense. So if there's nothing special, it's pretty easy to guess for a defense that, okay, it's just going to be a default play. Let's run out. There's no misdirections. There's no motion. There's nothing like that. I think this should be Zach Taylor's last season coaching the Cincinnati Bengals. Is he an okay coach? Sure. But is he going to win you games consistently, being a phenomenal coach? No. And we've seen that year after year after year. And last year should have been a wake-up call that, hey, Joe Burrow's a phenomenal quarterback. He deserved to win the MVP based on the numbers. It's just the win-loss was so bad, and he missed the playoffs. It was not a good look. You can't give him the MVP in that case. But now we're talking about a season where Joe Burrow's injured again. And now your offense has to send out Jake Browning, who's all right. He had an 89 passer rating in the last 3 weeks and had 7 touchdowns, 5 picks the last time he played in 2023 for a significant amount of time. So, we'll see. I do not have a lot of faith in the Cincinnati Bengals moving forward. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. But I think that going up against some difficult teams like the Lions, who all of a sudden had a resurgence, the Broncos defense, the Packers defense, then go up against Baltimore, Buffalo, Baltimore in 3 straight weeks later in the year, it's going to be rough. All right, coming up, Baker Mayfield is on fire. We'll talk about that beautiful game on Monday Night Football, as well as Daniel Jones has been setting records this NFL season in a good way. Yeah, that Daniel Jones, the one that I've been ripping on for the last 3 seasons. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that right after this short break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to be with you today on this Tuesday. My dad, Stephen Harvey, is not here for the show, but he'll be back, I would guess, pretty soon. But yeah, good show so far. We got a lot to talk about still. I want to jump right into this one because I can't believe what I'm seeing, although I won't say I'm that shocked because I expected a level of success, but not this because, my God, the Indianapolis Colts, led by Daniel Jones, they're setting records because their punter, Berto Sanchez literally hasn't done anything. Literally, it's been the Colts this year are the first team in the Super Bowl era to not punt in their first 2 games. Led by Daniel Jones in offense, which, by the way, set another record by scoring on their first 10 drives of the season. So, Daniel Jones, who with the New York Giants had one okay season. Again, I'm not calling it good. 15 touchdowns, 5 picks is not great. It's not top 10. So he had one okay season, with the rest a complete atrocity. And then the last season, everybody knew Daniel Jones, his time was done. Eventually he was going to get benched and whatnot, and he ultimately did. But this is the first time the Colts are 2-0 since 2009. Their offense has been unstoppable. And week 1 against the Dolphins, you might be saying, okay, maybe that's just a facade. Maybe it's the Miami Dolphins, their defense isn't great and whatnot. The Denver Broncos had, I believe, the number 2 defense last year. They did really well in week 1 against the Tennessee Titans, really getting pressure. And in this game against the Indianapolis Colts, the Colts, Daniel Jones had time. He had time to throw. He was making some crazy throws. Alec Pierce with a massive reception. Daniel Jones has touched on his deep balls. His deep ball looked great. Jonathan Taylor seems to be on fire. I think right now we're looking at a team that is literally top of the NFL. And in fact, if you look at EPA currently, overall offense, they're number 1 in offensive strength, tied with the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, Daniel Jones and his offense has basically the same EPA offensively as Josh Allen, the former MVP, last year's MVP, and that offense, and Lamar Jackson, the 2-time MVP, who just obliterated the Cleveland Browns. Their offenses are on the same playing field. And in fact, passing-wise, who has the best passing game in EPA per dropback? It's Daniel Jones' Indianapolis Colts. So, and if you look at the numbers, Daniel Jones is a top 2 quarterback in the NFL. I couldn't believe it, but that's what the data is. He has been, I believe, he has the highest completion percentage. He's one of the highest passer ratings in the league. His touchdowns are right up there. He's playing insane right now. And against the Broncos defense, he had 316 yards and 2 total touchdowns, 1 passing and 1 rushing. The Broncos defense, and we could talk about, the Colts didn't deserve to win that because of a leverage penalty call that turned a 60-yard missed field goal into a 45-yard game-winning field goal. Sean Payton called out a aggressive field goal block, which ultimately got that penalty, and he took accountability for that. And I'll add on this. The Colts defense didn't look great through the first 2 quarters. And especially early in the third quarter, the first drive the Broncos had, I believe they scored to make it, I think it was 28-13. I might get that wrong, but they scored 28 points. And the Colts defense held up every single time throughout. And Bo Nix had a bad interception in this game. But the Colts are on fire. And I don't think that this is last year's Saints team where they put up 40 points in back-to-back games. Because if you go up against this Broncos team, it's not like the Saints last year were going up against the top-tier defense. I think the best defense they played was the Dallas Cowboys, who week 1 we saw just the massive gaps in their defense, and their defense ended up being horrible for the year. But this was a true test of just how good you can be. Because you're going up against, like I mentioned, then I think the number 2 and number 3 defense last year, where they basically have all the same guys, and they added some players, like Hufanga, who's been great this year. It was a great acquisition for them. Riley Moss had a terrible game. The Colts even tried to test Pat Surtain as well. Tyler Warren, the rookie tight end, had a really good game, and I think everybody expected, you put out a reliable tight end, Daniel Jones is just going to keep going to him all the time. I remember the last season of him with the New York Giants, where they had Darren Waller, one of the last years where they had Darren Waller. Waller was cooking. Daniel Jones kept feeding him so much so they had to actually bench Darren Waller for practice in order to get the defense up to speed with them. So I think Daniel Jones, he's played basically perfectly. If your offense is on the same production level as the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, and totally, and passing-wise, you're the number 1 EPA per dropback offense, yeah, I think right now we're looking at a Colts team that is legit. They are going to win the AFC South, especially with the Houston Texans not looking great and honestly looking pretty bad. CJ Stroud, I don't know what's up with him. He doesn't have his wheels under him. It could be the offensive line. It could be, the not top tier talent, although Nico Collins is fine. Dalton Schultz is fine. Harrison Bryant, I don't mind. there's pieces there. Nick Chubb, he had a couple great runs so far this season, have to come back from a bad injury and being ineffective largely last year, coming back from the injury. But I don't think that this is just some crazy 2-game stretch. I think we could be looking at a Colts team that I'm not saying is going to go out and win a Super Bowl, but it's looking as perfect as you could possibly get with the team around them. Now, here's the great part. It's just going to keep coming and coming and coming because they play the Tennessee Titans this week. You're in Tennessee. But I don't see you stopping at all. The defense, I think, is going to be perfectly fine. I think the offense, we saw, Bo Nix do an okay job. He was very, very raw in week 1 against the Titans, but he did an all right job against the Tennessee Titans defense. Matt Stafford, they put up, I think, 33 points against the Titans this past week. So now you have Daniel Jones going up against this Titans team. I think we're going to see a 3-0 Indianapolis Colts team. The next test, you have 2 tests within the first 7 weeks. 3 if you include the Denver Broncos. You're in Los Angeles against the Rams, and then you're in Los Angeles again against the Chargers. That's week 4 and week 7, respectively. Those are going to be your biggest tests, and I think, personally, the all-around team of Justin Herbert, who, by the way, Keenan Allen, a resurgence, he looks like he's 27 again, not 33 or 34, however old he is. I think right now that's going to be a massive test because their defense did a great job on Mahomes and just made Geno Smith look like New York Jets Geno Smith, the one that we all expected to be a bust after just a few starts. This schedule is very favorable because you also play the Jaguars. I don't think Sam Darnold is all that great. You play Seattle. You play the Jaguars again. You'll play Houston twice, and they're not looking great. You play the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Falcons. There's a lot of really favorable matchups here, and if Daniel Jones, I'm not saying he'll go out and start setting records consistently, but if he goes out and just plays consistent football, and that's all that I really was expecting. I thought with the talent around him, it was very reminiscent of an upgraded 2022 New York Giants team. A solid defense, a good running game, and decent weapons, except this time it's a good defense, a great offensive line, a great running game, and very, very good, and especially a very deep weapons group. Alec Pierce, A.D. Mitchell, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, Mo Alley Cox. I mean, there's a lot of really deep players. Alec Pierce, of course, the deep ball threat. There's a lot of really good, really deep pieces that the Colts have, and let's just say how it is. Shane Steichen is a great head coach. He couldn't fix something that was basically unfixable in Anthony Richardson, where he kept going for the deep ball, the deep ball, the deep ball, the deep ball, and being dead last in efficiency when throwing the deep ball. Daniel Jones, he's nailing deep shots, he's nailing intermediate shots, he's nailing the check downs and the short passes. He's been, and this is as glowing a review as I can give for Daniel Jones, who I've said I've ripped on him, and I have. Just look at the previous shows we've done, where rightfully so, I've called out his bad play, his all right play, his not great play, but I have to commend him. Daniel Jones has been incredible. And so far, through the first 2 games, he's been, if you're uncomfortable saying top 2, you have to put him in the top 5 because he's been efficient. The numbers are there. He just beat a great defense. He embarrassed the Miami Dolphins. All on a new team, all in a quarterback battle, which I predicted instantly before he even got there. Any quarterback that comes to the Indianapolis Colts will beat out Anthony Richardson. And you sort of have to feel bad for Richardson. We knew it wasn't the system. We knew it wasn't the GM, Chris Ballard. We knew it wasn't Shane Steichen because we saw what Steichen did with Herbert and with Jalen Hurts. They just needed a quarterback that didn't try to play Madden in real life. They needed somebody to complete the easy passes and be consistent. And Daniel Jones, you give him a little bit of time. You give him a little bit of separation. I mean, he was dropping dimes so far this season. You give him an ounce of talent. He's an efficient quarterback. I do not think he'll be a top 3, top 5 quarterback by season end, but I think as it currently stands, nobody can argue. As it stands through 2 weeks, based on the numbers, based on the eye test, Daniel Jones is at least a top 5. I would put him at the number 2 quarterback in the league right now. I don't think that's much of a debate because, again, setting records out here for, let's see, they're the first team in NFL history to score on their first 10 offensive possessions in a season, as well as they're the first team in the Super Bowl era to never punt in their first 2 games. The guy's getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, their punter is, to sit on the bench and watch their offense cook. There's not much more you could ask if you're Shane Steichen, if you're Chris Ballard. So I've been very, very impressed with the Indianapolis Colts, and they will win this division because the Jaguars don't know what the hell's going on. The Texans, talk about don't know what the hell's going on. They looked even more confused. And the Titans, they could be something, but I just don't think they're there yet. They're way too young. So we'll see. All right, let's get into another redemption story. These next two topics are redemption stories now. Baker and Mayfield. There's the historic quote on this show that I believe it was after the Panthers, I think, released or traded. I think they released Baker Mayfield. That I said he would never be a starter in the NFL again. And then I went on the show and gave a take. And then I believe that night or the next night was the game Baker Mayfield on the Rams, only like a day and a half, 2.5 days with the Rams, led a game-winning drive against the Las Vegas Raiders and won that game for the Los Angeles Rams. And that kind of just took off. And Baker really has never looked back. I thought he got absolutely snubbed on a bad situation with Matt Rule and getting absolutely killed on a bad, was it roughing the passer call or something crazy at the very end of the Panthers-Browns game, which was a revenge game for Baker Mayfield. I think they should have won that game. Cade York kicked the big field goal at the very end of the game-winning field goal. But Baker, since coming to the Bucs, with 3 head coaches, might we add. So the level of consistency is not really there. He said 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years. So the level of consistency is not really there. He's been as consistent as you might expect. And the numbers back it up because if we look at Baker Mayfield's performance since coming over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's been a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. 10th in completion percentage, 8th in passing yards a game, number 1 in passing touchdowns, 5th in passer rating. And if we talk about Baker being clutch, he has the 5th most fourth quarter comebacks in the NFL since 2023, including the playoffs. So for a guy who, by the way, I always loved Baker. I absolutely loved Baker. I just thought he got snubbed. I looked at his play. He looked lost. He looked confused. It was a bad situation. You go, and by the way, the Panthers and the Browns, they were both aching for a level of success, which the Panthers don't have, and the Browns just got worse. And I talked about it on the show when it happened. I thought Baker and this whole situation with the Deshaun Watson case, that's why the Browns are such a bad organization. Because you come out and say we're not pursuing Deshaun Watson, and then behind everyone's back, and including Baker Mayfield's back, you go and overpay for Deshaun Watson, who, by the way, in one of the posts, I forget who it was from, you could literally see a Watson Atlanta Falcons jersey. So this should have been an Atlanta Falcons issue, but it's because Baker tried to play with a torn labrum and another injury, and he didn't look great. Might we add that Baker Mayfield came onto a team which the prior 2 years was 1-31, I think. Coming onto a team and making the playoffs, and literally was a couple plays away, and a Chad Haney, 13-yard run on 3rd and 14, away from beating Patrick Mahomes and making it to the AFC Championship game. You already beat the Steelers and absolutely obliterated them both defensively. And, offensively, Baker was fine, but this was a big defensive game for the Browns in that playoff game against Big Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Baker Mayfield was that close to beating Mahomes. If it wasn't for a Chad Haney, 13 or 14-yard run, which set up a 4th and 1 or whatever, which they ultimately got, which allowed the Chiefs to pass the Cleveland Browns in, I believe, was that 2019, 2020, something like that. But Baker was good. He wasn't terrible. He was great. I think he set the rookie record for passing touchdowns. I mean, he was a good quarterback. It's just the Browns organization is so poorly run. You had a lot of big egos with, I think it was Hugh Jackson saying that he wasn't going to put in the number 1 overall pick when you went 0-16 the year before. Instead, I forgot who the backup was, but it might have been Tyrod Taylor. I don't know. Someone could probably, correct me, but that's the level of ownership and leadership you have there where your head coach is not putting in your number 1 overall quarterback pick after you just went 0-16, and there was a big scuffle there. But this is a big redemption story. And I've ripped on Baker, but I've always been a big fan of Baker Mayfield's. I never wanted him to be lackluster. I never wanted him not to succeed. I always wanted him to succeed because I did think he had talent. I thought he could be a good quarterback. He was in a bad situation. He was part of a Browns organization that's always been poorly run, never really had a level of success, honestly, before Baker got there. And then they were able to actually be that close to beating a potential dynasty. And then the fans kept getting mad. Odell's dad came out with like a mixtape of all the missed throws and open plays. OBJ was open on that Baker missed. It was a toxic culture, toxic organization. So they traded him for, I think, a 4th or a 5th round pick to the Panthers. And then Baker has an opportunity to go 1-0 and then got snubbed. And then led by Matt Rule, who ended up getting fired, I believe, that season. That was a whole just bad situation. And then he ends up on the Rams, leads a massive game-winning drive, being like 2.5 days on the team, and does all right to end the year, ends up in Tampa, and all of a sudden Tampa Bay has a franchise quarterback literally not even a year removed from Tom Brady. So he was able to maintain where Tom Brady left off, which was not something Cam Newton and Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi was able to do. Hell, Bill Belichick couldn't do it. But Todd Bowles and this offense, Dave Canales, Liam Cohen, they have a brand new OC this year. We'll see what the offense looks like, but so far it's been all right. Their rookie wide receiver, Ibuka, is very, very good. Mike Evans is now, thinking about retirement at the end of this year. I'm hoping he still plays. I love Mike Evans. I think he is a Hall of Famer. I don't understand the argument for he's not. So what? He doesn't make the All-Pros. He's a consistent level receiver. I praise consistency. He's tied with Jerry Rice for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. That has to mean something. So, Baker right now, I couldn't be happier for Baker. I honestly couldn't be happier for Daniel Jones either. But Baker has found the home in Tampa. This is not, a massive market where there's a lot of noise or fans aching for success, because they got that already. They scratched that itch. Tom Brady came in here and won a Super Bowl his first year. Made it to another NFC divisional game against the Rams, where they ultimately lost on a crazy throw, blown coverage at the end of the Rams game, and then against the Dallas Cowboys with a broken offense, with no offensive line and backup tight ends and whatnot. Brady looked all of the 45 years that he was. And then Baker came in here and was very good. Nearly beat the Detroit Lions to make the NFC Championship game. He already beat the Philadelphia Eagles when the Eagles were reeling, and embarrassed them on national TV. It's just a question of how far can they go. That will purely rely on health, because you lost, Kalijah Kancey, he's out for the year. Gadecki, I think, he's going to be out. I might pronounce the name wrong. Your offensive lineman, he's out. Tristan Wirfs, he needs to get healthy. So health is obviously going to be a big factor, but Bucky Irving's a hit. Rashad White had the game-winning touchdown. Mike Evans really hasn't even got going yet. Your rookie wide receiver seems to be great. Your defense is good, although it's looking a lot like the Tom Brady defense. Of great running defense, bad passing defense. So maybe against, sort of an air raid offense where they're just going to light it up through the air, maybe you'll get cooked there. Maybe. We'll see. But ultimately, right now, the Bucs are in a great position, top of the NFC South. I mean, they're benefiting from the Saints being abysmal and the Panthers having a busted quarterback, so we'll see exactly what the season ends up being like. But ultimately, so far, through 2 games, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they play the Jets this week. That should be a win. Home against the Eagles, that'll be an interesting one. And then you have a couple winnable games. You play the Saints again. You play the Falcons again. You have 2 games against the Panthers coming up. You play the Cardinals. You play the Patriots. There's a lot of winnable games here. I think Baker Mayfield will be able to get it done. And finally, to wrap up the show, my guy, I waved the white flag, I believe, not too long ago. Maybe it was 2023, I believe. My guy, Mac Jones, is back, baby. Mac Jones, 26 of 39, nearly 300 yards. He had 3 passing touchdowns. He did have a fumble loss, but what are you going to do? 113 passer rating, which, by the way, if you put him in, I believe that's the 5th highest passer rating already in the NFL. My boy Mac Jones was cooking against the New Orleans Saints. Beautiful touch pass to CMC, a great read on a big touchdown to Jawan Jennings, Christian McCaffrey in the flat, and him making some big-time plays. Mac Jones looked great. Hell, he even tried to throw to like quintuple or quadruple coverage, and actually, it should have been caught. But who was expecting a ball being thrown in quadruple coverage at all? But this adds to the fact, and it's not a ding on Brock Purdy. It's a praise of Kyle Shanahan. Because Mac Jones looked really good because he had competency. And me being a Patriots fan, a lifelong Patriots fan, My analysis from 2022 to 2023, the 2 years he was there, was that the Patriots went from Josh McDaniels, who was obviously a great offensive coordinator for the Patriots, who was Brady's go-to guy on the offensive side of the football. They went from Josh McDaniels to Matt Patricia, a defensive coordinator who never touched the offensive side of the football, to be his OC. Although it was like offensive line coach and offensive assistant or whatever. That was 2022. And then on the fact he failed as the head coach with the Detroit Lions. And then Belichick brought another one of his buddies, Joe Judge, in, who was a failure as a head coach for the New York Giants, who was a special teams coordinator for the New England Patriots, to be Mac Jones's quarterback coach when Daniel Jones looked abysmal the 2 years that Joe Judge was the head coach of the New York Giants. The offensive line, there's one guy remaining from Mac Jones' offensive line on the Patriots, and that's Michael Wenu. Everybody else is retired or gone. Bill Belichick drafted Cole Strange in the first round, where most teams had him as a 4th or 5th round prospect. Who did Belichick draft offensively to help out Mac Jones? Oh, guards and early round kickers. Who, by the way, his kicker was the worst kicker in the 1 year he was the Patriots kicker when Mac Jones there. He was the worst. Chad Ryland. So Bill Belichick's system didn't work. He brought his buddies back and then put him in roles they were not qualified for. So I'm not thinking them, although they never took accountability, especially in 2022. Mac Jones looked okay, but couldn't do much because reportedly Matt Patricia put in 10 scripted plays for Mac Jones, which is absolutely terrible. And then once he got the high ankle sprain against the Baltimore Ravens, he looked so scared behind an offensive line that really couldn't hold up for him whatsoever. But with Kyle Shanahan being a quarterback whisperer, I know they call Kevin O'Connell the quarterback whisperer, but we have to take a look at the level of success Kyle Shanahan has had with non-mobile quarterbacks like, let's be honest, Kirk Cousins. He was great with Kirk Cousins. He was great with Matt Ryan. He made Matt Ryan an MVP. Matt Schaub made a Pro Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo made an NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy made an NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl. And he's probably the most mobile out of all these guys. And Mac Jones nearly put up 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 113 passer rating in his first start with Kyle Shanahan. You could see why Shanahan liked him in the 2021 draft. I don't know who the hell made the decision to draft Trey Lance, who was the most raw quarterback coming out of that draft, but you could see why Shanahan liked Mac Jones. Now, I don't know if I would have traded up 3 first-round picks to get Mac Jones, but ultimately, we saw in this game, Kyle Shanahan is a very easy quarterback offense. Quick routes, get the ball out. Let's get our guys into open space. Let's go spread, and let's just get our guys open, and let's just keep moving the ball, keep moving the chains. And that's exactly what he did. He just kept moving the ball and moving the ball and moving the ball. And the Saints defense, I don't think it's abysmal. Is it great? No. But it's not terrible. They still have some dudes. Cam Jordan's still there. They have a couple dudes. It's just about, offensively, you have Spencer Rattler, quarterback. There's not much you can do offensively. Kellen Moore's rookie head coach. So, again, the Saints aren't a good team. But they have some dudes who could make plays. Mac Jones fumbling the ball. He never really had the best hands. But Mac Jones could only work in a system because he's not a great quarterback. Did he deserve the Pro Bowl in his rookie year? Maybe. He played very well in his rookie year. It looked great. At one point, they were the number 1 team in the AFC after beating the Titans. So the Patriots in 2021 were a very, very good team. But after that, worst receiver core in the NFL. Excuse me. Worst offensive line in the NFL, pass blocking wise. No true running back help as well. The defense was all right, but the offense was terrible. So the Patriots did nothing and ended up going 4-13. Good job, Bill Belichick. Whoa. But all Mac Jones needs is a level of competency. Give him an okay offensive line. Give him 1 or 2 talented receivers. He didn't have George Kittle. Doesn't have Brandon Ayuk. Doesn't have Deebo Samuel. He doesn't have some of the top guys. I know Deebo's not there anymore, but that's what Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy had to work with. He had some top-tier guys. Jimmy Garoppolo, Deebo Samuel in his prime, and Brock Purdy had a little bit of Deebo when he was really effective. Brandon Ayuk was also a very talented wide receiver in both eras. The couple consistent pieces are Trent Williams and CMC. That's really the only guys you can compare it to when it's Jimmy Garoppolo, who had a little bit of Christian McCaffrey, and Trent Williams. Brock Purdy had Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey, and now Mac Jones has the two of them. And the offense looked pretty good. Like I said, if we're talking about Mac Jones throwing for nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and here's the big one, no interceptions, because we have to remember, I wish I had the clips up. I wish I primed them before the show, but just think about it. A couple of the last times we saw Mac Jones, the interception against the Colts, the interception against the Giants, these were like, how are you a quarterback in the NFL? And Mac Jones going out, first start, Brock Purdy hurt, going out and balling against the New Orleans Saints. I'm not saying he's coming back and going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but I think it is more the Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins, maybe a touch of that, maybe bringing him. I don't know. But Kyle Shanahan has that effect. Matt Shaw made a Pro Bowl. Kirk Cousins threw for almost 5,000 yards. Matt Ryan was an MVP. Jimmy Garoppolo made a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy made a Super Bowl. And by the way, they play the Cardinals and the Jaguars. So Brock Purdy right now, there's a shot he plays for week 3. My question is, why bother? Why, if he's not 100%, why play him? Mac Jones could hold up on his own on the road in New Orleans playing against the Saints, who don't have a terrible defense, and put up a very, very solid performance. And now you're playing the Cardinals, who nearly lost to Bryce Young in a late comeback. I would say you play Mac Jones. Be safe. And this is not saying Mac Jones, there's a quarterback controversy. But what I'm saying is, don't try to re-injure Brock Purdy. Right now, it works. If it doesn't work, then you can make changes. But right now, it's working. Mac Jones looked great. He looked poised. Now, Mac Jones' form, I still don't love. He has this weird thing. I don't love his throwing motion. He doesn't exactly step into his throws, but he had some great touch on the football. Middle of the field, up the seam. Juwan Jennings having a great catch there. CMC had a beautiful touchdown catch. A rookie tight end has his first career touchdown catch in this game as well. I mean, Mac Jones was cooking in this game. It's just difficult. I don't know how many quarterbacks could go to New England in 22 and 2023 and be led by a defensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator to be your offensive line coach and offensive assistant and your quarterback coach. I don't know how many quarterbacks could overcome that. Maybe the very, very best. But we saw Lamar Jackson with John Harbaugh and Greg Roman be very lackluster in the passing game. And when teams shut down the running game, he did not have the level of success to match his running game with his passing game. So if he was forced to pass the ball, it wasn't effective, at least at the same level. So we saw him exposed. And now Lamar Jackson is basically the perfect quarterback. He has the mobility. He has the accuracy. He has the in-the-pocket awareness. He has the ability to scramble. He is basically everything. He'll probably win 3 MVPs, 4 MVPs when his career's over. Now, I'll still stick with my Super Bowl thing because we have to see him in the playoffs in a big-time moment get a win. We haven't seen that yet. Again, fault could be put wherever you want. It's just we haven't seen the win yet. So, Mac Jones, we'll see. It'll depend on the situation. He's not a quarterback that you're going to go in and say, okay, Mac's going to go in there and change the franchise. No. It's going to be very Sam Darnold, Geno Smith. He's going to operate within the system. He is the negative connotation that people give a system quarterback. He operates within the system. It only doesn't turn negative when you could operate at a high level within the system. Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy. You play within the system. A game changer is Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. Maybe Justin Herbert. I still have to see. Jury's still out. Maybe even Baker Mayfield. But these are the guys that make the difference, where the structure breaks down and they're able to still make some crazy plays. That's what Brock Purdy can't do. Because we saw in week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks, he threw 2 interceptions. He didn't look great. He went 12-13, and then the back end of the game, he looked terrible and nearly lost the game. So, again, I'm not saying Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback, and it's not saying Mac Jones is going to beat out Brock Purdy anytime soon. But all I'm saying is the system works with a competent quarterback. C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins, those guys aren't really starting level quarterbacks. If Daniel Jones is in the system, it would be successful. Mac Jones, so far we've seen it be successful. A lot of quarterbacks that are good quarterbacks, that are starter-level quality quarterbacks, they would, be good in the system. Will they make an NFC championship game and a Super Bowl? Maybe not. But they will be a good quarterback and could get a 9-8 record because they operate within a system that works beautifully for quarterbacks that can excel in it, which Mac Jones so far has been able to do. So maybe I need to put down the white flag, although that might have been for Bailey Zappi, but I'm very happy. Redemption. This thing, very negative show, because we're calling out bad performances and criticizing them. We talked about Daniel Jones' resurgence, Baker Mayfield, Mac Jones. It's a positive day. We end on a positive note here. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, that wraps it up. We thank you so much for the constant support as always. If you want to help out the show, link down below, Dr. Squatch. You make for new customers only. You purchase $10 or more on the site. You get 3 free limited time bricks just for you. As well as if you want to keep your internet privacy and security at the top tier level, go down and click that affiliate link for NordVPN to get that as well. Thursday Night Football, Bills, Dolphins. We don't need to make this pick. Bills are going to wipe the floor with them. I don't think it's honestly not even going to be close. So, we'll cover that on Friday's show, of course, as well as make our predictions for all of Week 3's games. So, stay tuned for that. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. It's been great to have you here on a Tuesday. I will see you on Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.